Hello, today is November 11th, 2020. My name is Victoria Martinez. I'm interviewing Javier Garza for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Mr. Garza, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something that you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The university's library special collections and archives will archive your interview, along with any other photographs or other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-exclusive right to the interview and any other materials you donate to the special collections and archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. Do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes, I agree.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Austin for inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I agree.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voices server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voices sends it to UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives, we would have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members so that it will not be part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible to the UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions ask for your consent on what I just described. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
Yes, I agree.
On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voices receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you consent for us to share your phone numbers, your emails, or with journalists?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you for your consent. Your experience and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections Archives. I look forward to what you have to say in the interview questions I will now ask. Thank you for your time. Your stories and experiences truly are valuable to us at UTRGV Special Collections, especially for the UTRGV's Special Collections. They are committed to preserving the stories of Mexican Americans and Latinos from South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, and those who work closely with these populations during this COVID-19 pandemic. Because you are a secondary high school teacher concerned about the state of your home, both locally and nationally, as well as recently becoming a full-fledged citizen of the United States just in time for the election, I know that you have meaningful stories and experiences to share on how COVID-19 has impacted these roles you carry out in your life. So, before I ask you to share stories about your life in this pandemic, tell us, who is Javier Garza?
Matamoros, Tamaulipas, Mexico. I did all my schooling over there in Matamoros. I started working in 1985 at a maquiladora, and that allowed me to get an associate's degree at Texas Samos College. And while working, I also pursued an engineering degree in Mexico, in Matamoros. So I got my engineering degree while working. And that was up until 2003, I'm sorry, until 2003, after 17 years, when companies started moving production facilities to China. I was laid off in 2003. And so it was hard to get a job again in Mexico and Matamoros. So I got a alternative certification for teaching, and I applied to work here in the U.S. and I was hired in Harlingen School District in 2003, and so I worked for 2 years in a middle school, and then in 2005 I started in a high school over there in Harlingen, and then in 2016 I transferred to Los Fresnos, and I've been teaching since 2016 the Los Fresnos High School.
Wonderful. So, the first question I want to ask you is, when you first heard about COVID-19, where did you learn about it?
Around December or January of this year, I heard about it in the news, in the TV, in the internet, and it was just barely starting. So we just heard about it. We heard that it was bad over there, but it had not started here, or at least we had not heard anything in the U.S.
So, what would you say your first reaction to the information about COVID-19 was?
Well, we heard just just a little bit in the news that it was happening in Asia, but I didn't feel anybody here in the U.S. was concerned about it. We didn't expect it to be as big as it is now. So it's not so much that we didn't care. It's just we didn't expect that it would come and hit us like it did.
At what point did you realize that this pandemic was a serious life altering event?
Well, up until the middle of March, before spring break at the school, we heard that it had started in New York. We heard a lot of cases. It was starting in the East Coast. It still had not come strong here in the Valley. But then when after we went into spring break, we started hearing all these cases, and it happened really fast. So when we could not come back to the classroom after spring break, we knew this was a very serious event. So I would say in spring break, that's when it really hit us here in the Valley, when we couldn't go back again to school.
Mm. So, over the last few months, what news media or social media have you relied on to keep you informed about coronavirus?
I typically watch the evening news, local channels, and national ABC or CBS. I also read CNN online, Google News. So it's different outlets where I read my news, where I get my news from, and they all come together, and it's like a consensus of what is going on in the country.
It's good to have variety. So, can you share with me what you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease? Or can you share with me what you don't understand about this new coronavirus?
Well, we know that it's very contagious, especially through the air, through human fluids, with our eyes, nose, and I know that it affects the respiratory system, and that's why coverings to cover our face and sanitize the areas where we work, and that's what I know. It's basic what I know about the infection.
Would you take the first COVID-19 vaccine available on the market?
I don't think so. I mean, I've heard from different doctors in the news outlets. Uh, Dr. Fauci was one of them who said that typically a vaccine takes about 5 years to be released out to the public, in average, not all of them, but in average. And I've read and heard and seen that there's a lot of secondary effects for the ones that have been tested. And I know they just announced one, Pfizer. I think that is 90% effective, but I don't think they still have tested enough to know what are the secondary effects on humans. So I don't think any something a vaccine as important as this one that you can just give it out to the public because it's highly needed. We understand that it's highly needed, but they have to test it properly. Any medicine has to be tested properly before being released to the general public.
That's fair. Does your family hold the same beliefs as you about COVID 19?
Yes, we're very serious. We take all the precautions that we can. We don't typically go and eat in restaurants. When we have to go to the store, we always have face coverings and hand sanitizer, and we sanitize the shopping carts. And when we bring the items to our house, they're usually sanitized as well. And we take it very seriously.
Okay, so you were born and grew up in Mexico. As someone with living relatives there, how has the pandemic affected the ability to communicate with them?
We still communicate through the phone and social media. We don't see each other as often as in the past, as in before the pandemic. We would see each other several times a month. Now it's maybe one or two at the most per month, and so we try to do it to communicate just by phone or social media. So it has affected how we have communicated in person with relatives in Mexico.
Have you visited them at all?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have, and it's not as often as before, and we go. Of course, we keep our distance. We don't hug or or we're not as effusive as we were before the pandemic. We take precautions.
So you visited the other side of the border. How do you feel that the response has been over there as compared to in the valley?
Well, I don't know in general about the whole country in Mexico. I don't know because I haven't seen enough news or what's really going on. I do know that when I've driven over there, uh, the couple of times that I've been driving, I see several people, even young kids without a face covering. I've seen lines outside banks. People they don't keep the proper social distance. So I don't know. Again, I don't know in general, but I think it falls on all of us. I think we have to have the common sense to cover our faces, to keep a distance, no matter what country, which country you're in.
That's a sensible outlook. Does your family struggle with the new work pace the pandemic has presented?
Well, in the beginning, with the school, with the online connections and now that everything has to be done online. I remember my kids, especially in the spring, when they first had to do this online. So I had to help my young kids and help them on how to use Google Classroom, how to submit their assignments, making sure that they had the devices and the proper internet connections. It was very different. Also, making sure that they knew that this was still school, that they still had to wake up in the morning, that they still had to submit assignments, they still have to uh, have their cameras on, and it was very different and a few struggles in the beginning. Now they got into a routine, so I wouldn't say it's normal now, it's the new normal, but I think it's working much better than it did in the spring when it first started.
Okay. You mentioned in the pre interview that physical activity was a central part of your lifestyle. Were there any workout routines that you had to give up or modify to accommodate to social distancing standards?
Well, the exercises, my physical activities, they happen outdoors, and typically it's early in the morning. So there's not that many people out when I'm out jogging and or in the bicycle. So I never attended a gym, so that did not affected me when they closed the gyms. So and there's also not been for outdoor activities as long. So that was good. It didn't affect me because I usually go out on my own, and there's really not that many people where I go jogging. But I do know of other people that were limited because they were attending gyms.
You mentioned you are currently working as a high school teacher. Can you describe how your job and workplace was before the pandemic?
Yeah, I teach engineering, and we have a lot of hands-on projects. We do a lot of robotics. We have a CNC mill. We do a lot of the curriculum has a lot of hands-on besides the regular lectures. So my classroom was typically full of activity, robots. Uh, I sponsored the engineering club, so we would meet before school, sometimes after school, sometimes on weekends to practice for robotic competitions. So it was full of activity. My classroom also has I have 24 desktop computers, computer lab. So there was always something going on, something built or tested, and it was again full of activity. Really, I really enjoy working with my curriculum, which is the project lead the way. So it was full of activities.
And how has that changed during the pandemic?
Well, now we have to do all of it online. So the students, they have no access anymore to the tools or the equipment, robotic equipment, CNC mill. Everything's off limits for their own safety and the safety of the staff. So everything has to be through simulations. We use a robotic programming simulation program. The students still go through the basic coding, and they make the robot make certain functions, certain movements, but it's all online. It's all on the computer. So we don't have the engineering club this year because we cannot. There's no robotics competitions. The students, they cannot be handling tools, share tools or equipment for their own safety. So it's very different. And now we have a hybrid system where only have a few students every other day, and so it changed completely. It's a different environment, and it's kind of sad and disappointing because some seniors have lost the opportunity to do the robotic competitions that we typically do year after year. We advanced to the international robotic event in Washington D.C. We were gonna participate this last May, yes, and but it got postponed. It got canceled actually. So again, some of the students, they were seniors and they were not able to participate. And even during graduation, I was not able to say goodbye properly to several of my senior students because we never came back from spring break. So I just barely saw them during graduation, but at a distance. So it was disappointing, and it was sad to see that.
How it's truly horrendous. So, curriculum wise, do you think it was suitable to be adapted onto an online format? What was the most challenging part about it?
Definitely the robotics part. Um, I think at least two of my classes, they program robots, so they build them, and these are small metal robots. They're the Vex brand. So it's really exciting for the students to be building it and then programming and then seeing the results, seeing the robot move around, pick stuff, move objects. That's always a fun part of my classes. And now they have to do it on the computer, so they're not building anything physically. There's just this little robot that moves around in the screen. So it's not what it was originally intended. But again, everybody has to adapt. They've come to enjoy the programming, this new environment. They still enjoy part of it, and definitely they're learning how to program the logic and everything that is involved in programming a robot. So that is the bright side about it.
I see. So I know that you've also had to work along with Project Lead the Way, PLTW, the independent organization contracted with your school district. How has the pandemic impacted your involvement with them?
Well, they have been very responsive to the need, to the challenge, and they have provided teachers around the country with solutions and alternative software that can be used, alternative projects. So it's been adjusted tremendously, and we have been learning a lot these past few weeks, and I think it's gonna be better next semester after the experience that we've had. But it's definitely different, and we've been getting a lot of support from PLTW so that we can provide the students with the best curriculum that is possible due to the conditions.
So, do you believe that this hybrid remote learning is effective for educating students?
I would say is not as enjoyable because I mean this is an elective class, and it's a robotics class. It's a hands-on class. We're still providing the experience as far as learning the programming and the logic and the engineering terms. It is effective. Maybe it's not as enjoyable as a student who is looking to build something with their hands and see the failure of a project, learn from it, and then improve on it. I think there's something lost when you cannot do that. uh, but it's still we're still providing the experience for engineering. We're still doing like 3D modeling, and we're still going to try to do 3D printing, even though the some of the students that are going to be there physically is going to be limited. So definitely not as effective as before, but it still provides the experience, the engineering experience.
So, on that note, does Los Fresnos ISD plan to resume in class instruction for all students at any time during the school year?
Well, all I know is that for this semester, the option is there for hybrid or online. So the parents they have the option of either, and we don't know about next semester. Uh, I think it all depends on how the situation is. But I do know for sure that for this semester, there's an option. The parents have the options, either full time, online, or a hybrid system.
So, are the parents and teachers happy with the way Los Fresnos ISD has handled their health and safety?
They've been very responsive. They provided us with training and the material, the protection that we need to have a safe classroom. And I mean, there's always administrators in the hallways asking us if we need anything, and they're monitoring. making sure that everybody's wearing their mask. In the school, there's security personnel walking around. They're always monitoring. I feel comfortable going to school. Of course, you never know when or how you can get the COVID, but I think we're doing everything that we can in the school district to have a safe environment for the student and for the staff.
Okay, so generally, are you satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in Cameron County?
I think so. Uh, I mean, there was even this time where there was a disagreement between what the state was requesting and what the county was requesting. I think that the county was more strict, which I agree with. And I mean, you when you go to the store, you see that the signs where they need to have a face mask, and I think it all depends on us. I think everybody has to have common sense and just do everything that we can. This, no matter what the state or what the county says, we have to take this seriously and protect ourselves and everybody as much as we can.
So, are you satisfied with the state response led by Governor Abbott?
Not exactly. No, again, I think counties are, different counties are trying to be more strict with the rules, like how much people can be like in restaurants and public places. And I just have not heard from the state to be as strict with the face mask and other things. I think they're focusing more on the economic side more than the safety side. That's my point of view.
That is very true. So, are you satisfied with the national response to COVID-19 led by President Trump and his administration?
No, and I think we've seen the results even from the beginning, for what we saw there in the news and what he acknowledged, the lack of communication, the seriousness at the beginning of the year, and I still have to see a mandate from the president to wear a face mask, and not only a mandate, but set an example, set a public example, where he be the first one to wear the mask everywhere. And it's just disappointing and sad, really, to not see that from the highest level.
That's all very valid points. So, if you had the power to respond to COVID-19, what would you do differently?
Well, the opposite of exactly what I said. If you know this is coming and you know this is serious, let the people know. Let them make the decision if they want to do something about it from the very beginning. But talk to them with the truth. Rely on scientific people, and that's what the advisors are for. It's not to just agree with you and everything, but they're there to give you their point of view, their scientific expertise, advice, and just rely on scientific people and make the decisions accordingly.
Okay, so this is a special year in our national democracy because it's a presidential voting year. Did you vote? And if so, did you notice or do anything different because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, well, this was my first chance at voting. I became a citizen, a U.S. citizen recently, so it was the first time that I was able to vote. Uh, so I did it, and I did it with my daughter, who's also was the first time that she could vote. So we went together, we voted, and we were very happy and very proud to do it. And I think I mean, again, this is the first time, so I don't know if before you could do it like a drive-through like we did this year. I don't think so. And it was different, and I just wonder why we didn't see more people in the early voting, and maybe there were plenty of places where they could vote. I don't know where would when I would usually drive by those places, there weren't that big lines to vote. But it was different. It was different with the drive-through and getting the ballots in our car and casting the vote there in the car. So it was different.
Was it convenient?
Yes, it was convenient. It was convenient, and it was new, but it was an easy process once you saw the ballots and everything. Was the first time that I'd seen it. So it was an easy process, and one I will definitely continue doing.
That's good. So, is there anything else you would like to share with me about your experience with COVID 19 that I have not asked about?
Well, just we're all hoping that the new vaccine uh, um, is effective, or whatever new vaccine, and hopefully they can test it properly. It's a struggle for a lot of people. I know some of my students struggle with internet connections and devices, and I think corona is gonna be around for some time. We have to take it seriously. Even if we have a vaccine, we have to do everything that we can to protect ourselves, each other, and everybody. So it's a serious event. We have to do everything that we can to avoid the spread of it.
I would like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to conduct this interview. We truly do value your stories and experiences here at the U2RGV Special Collections.
Thank you, and thank you for the interview.